Hello and welcome back to D6 Tabletop. In this video you join me at Bristol Independent Gaming in Cater Road, Bishopsworth for a 3-game 2,000 points Warhammer 40,000 tournament.
I've brought my Necrons for their final hurrah before the new codex comes out and all the index and current builds are gone.
But first of all, let's have a little look at Bristol Independent Gaming. This place is a great venue. It's got a shop attached to it selling 40k, Age of Sigmar, Star Wars, historical, Dungeons & Dragons, board games. There's loads of stuff here and all your hobby supplies. It's got a best part of 20 or more tables. There's rooms at the back for D&D and some fantastic terrain, as we will see as we go throughout this video. So without further ado, let's have a little look at my list and see what I've brought.
Okay, my list then. This time I've built round a force that just hopefully will not go away. The main bulk of this army is 2 Lich Guard blocks, one led by an Overlord and one led by a Lord. Both have got reanimation orbs, allowing them to reanimate in both my command phase and my opponent's command phase. Both have got Technomancers, giving them both units a 5-up feel no pain, meaning that they should be very hard to shift, with a 3-up save, 4-up invulnerable, 5-up feel no pain. And due to the fact that there is a Lord or an Overlord leading the unit, they're also -1 to wound. One Technomancer has got the Veil of Darkness, allowing me at the end of my opponent's turn to pick them up and bring them back in at the end of my movement phase. The other Technomancer has got the enhancement, giving the unit stealth, making them -1 to hit, and the benefit to cover from shooting attacks. The next immovable object, hopefully, is going to be a Transcendent Satan. I've never used one of these before, but it looked cool, and when I give it the Sepaternal Weave, it gets a 4-up feel no pain. So that's a 4-up save, a 4-up invulnerable, a 4-up feel no pain, and it halves all damage. So that should not be going anywhere. A unit of warriors led by a Technomancer and Lord, again reanimating at the start of each command phase, and again another 5-up feel no pain. They're there because they're OC2 each, making them an OC42 blob, hoping that I can lock down an objective and just hold that for the game. One Canoptic Doomstalker, because I need to have something with a big gun to take out some form of tank threat, or at least some heavy infantry. I'm expecting Terminators and stuff like that. A unit of Tomb Blades. These are fast bikes. They're used for early game point scoring. They got a scout move. They move pretty fast. They can get up the board and get me onto a point before they die, usually within the first or second turn. But the more importantly, they score me the points before they die. The Canoptic Reanimator, a current staple, probably won't be there once a new index comes out. It's got a 12-inch aura, allowing each unit that reanimates within range of it to gain an extra D3 reanimation wounds to their action. A Locust Destroyer. I have 30 points left. He's 30 points. He's there in case he's got to do an action or to hold an objective out of the way. 3 Skullpack Destroyers. I love these models. I don't think they're worth the points. I don't think they bring much to the table. But they're so cool, and because it's my last game before the new index comes out, I wanted to run them, so here they are. And finally, 3 units of 3 Scarab Swarms. They have no OC, they can't hold objectives, but they can do actions, and they've got a very low profile to hide out of the way. That's all they're there for, to draw my cards, and hide and hopefully last until the end of the game. So, that's the list. It's got no real teeth. It's purely built around coming back and staying on the board and just being stubborn to shit. If I face anything with lots of heavy infantry or lots of tanks, I'm probably not going to win or not be able to remove many models. I'm going to be a case of can I just outscore them and hold objectives. So that's my list. We've had a look at Bristol Independent Gaming. Let's get into Game 1. So, Game 1 then, it's James and his 1,000 Sons. He's got Magnus, he's got Araman, he's got Terminators, Rubric Marines, Rhino, Blue Scribe and a Changeling, and just a lot of board presence just with those very expensive models and very tough models. Deployment is Search and Destroy, Game is Take and Hold, Mission Rule, Chilling Reign. As you can look at this board, there's quite an open area in the middle. My main thought here is Lich Guard in the centre. Let's see if Magnus and the Terminators want to fight, which they obliged me with, which was nice. So, after tying up Magnus and taking all the punishment for about 3 turns, Magnus finally went down to Lich Guard. Just the repetitiveness and the stubbornness of them, thankfully, helped me stay in the game, keep him alive, and get rid of Magnus. At the same time, the Satan's ability to teleport whenever he advances is great for doing secondaries. Yes, he's a 330 point model, but he's used more for scoring points. Warrior Blob up the top onto an objective, and that is pretty much mine for the game. Meanwhile, the bikes and the Scorpex are just scoring points in the bottom. They don't actually do much all game other than score me points on secondaries. Scarabs doing their little thing. But mainly, the main fight is just the Lich Guard in the centre fighting Magnus and Terminators. Thankfully, at the start, the Terminators fell their charge, meaning that Magnus, bless him, is fighting 20 Lich Guard on his own, which pretty much sealed the deal for him in about turns 2 and 3 because he took too many wounds in the first instance, meaning that I think he would have lasted longer if he hadn't have been fighting on his own. However, I was not aware of just how many flamers this army has. At one point, I had a Lich Guard blob down to 1. Now, unfortunately, 1 does mean it more come back next turn, and if he had just a couple more, he would have got rid of it, or a few more lucky rolls. As it was, I went down to 1, I managed to reanimate more, I keep them alive, keep the game going, after which he changed tactic and used his flamers on my warrior blob unit, removing them from top objective, but thankfully they had scored quite enough points by that point to help me get a decent lead. And then he managed to teleport a unit into my back line, getting him capture enemy outpost, forcing me to take the Satan from his end of the table back to mine to be able to capture my home objective back so that I could still score some other secondaries later on in the game. But great bit of play there, forcing me to go back and sort out my own home objective rather than being able to carry on pushing into his line. But once I tied up the majority of his army in the middle, it really was a case of as long as I can keep him occupied, I can score the secondaries and deny him from scoring them, meaning that I could then take the game. Bringing the final score, 92 to the Necrons, 68 to the Thousand Suns. Great game with James. It was the first game we played despite being at a few tournaments together, but he's a great opponent and it was great fun. So let's move on to game 2. What happens when an unending swarm meets an undying legion? Well, let's find out in game 2 as I played Charlie and his Nids and his unending swarm of 140 models. He's got 100 Termagants, 40 Gargoyles, a Swarm Lord, Neuro Tyrant, Death Leaper, Biovores, Neurolictors, Pyrovores, Ripper Swarms, and Zonethropes. Oh boy, was this a long game. Deployment, Dawn of War, Mission Rule, Vox Static, and primary objective, priority targets. With so many high OC bodies on the table, this was going to be a tough match. Gargoyles have an insane amount of movement, plus they can shoot and move again afterwards, so they can really trap you on your back line, stopping you from getting onto the board, which is exactly what Charlie did. And there's a lot of shenanigans where if you shoot them, they can move. If you move within 9 inches of them, they can move. There's a lot to consider because by doing movement or by doing shooting, you could end up giving them more board presence. So you got to weigh out your options. For the first couple of turns, I tried playing it cagey, hoping that I could outmaneuver them to get onto objectives, because once I sit on them and I hold them, I can pretty much get rid of his units, because although there's lots of them, they are quite squishy. However, he can bring them back for 2 CP. And due to the fact he's got the Swarm Lord, he's generating 2 CP as well, so he's always got enough to bring back another unit. Come turn 3, I change tack, and the new idea is, if I kill enough units that he can't bring them all back, then he's going to be on the back foot, only be able to bring back 1 unit if I can kill at least 2 a turn. With Lich Guard, that's not a problem. 30 attacks, 2s, 2s, -2, he gets no save, I can lift a squad a turn. But now it's having to get there because Lich Guard is slow. At the midpoint of this game, it is anyone's game. I've managed to start wrangling back some board control after being stuck in my deployment zone for the first turn or 2, but he's still bringing them back onto the table. My Lich Guard are slowly, and I mean very slowly, making their way up the table by cutting through unit after unit. The Warrior Blob aren't doing that much, but they've managed to now get onto an objective, create the circle around it, therefore he can't get onto it, meaning it's mine. The Satan has teleported to the other end of the board, where there's not many units, in the hope that I can just get on it and start either making him move some units to come and deal with it, or score points by being out of the way. Scarabs are doing Scarab things, and doing actions where they can, but most of the fight is about killing chaff. He's hiding most of his bigger units behind the terrain in the middle, so my big gun's popping off shots when it sees them, but most of my fight and most of my game is concentrated on getting rid of these horde units to allow me to have some board movement and get across the table and start scoring points. And it's pretty much to and fro like this for the whole game. Towards the end, I start getting my board control because it gets to the point now where I'm killing more units than he can bring back, but it is a little bit too little too late because he's already had most of the table for a lot of the game. Nicely, the score packs are actually pulling some weight in this game because they can just keep going around killing light to mid infantry. So they're going around, they're killing gargoyles, gaunts, and the occasional lictor. The Satan is killing mid-infantry while still scoring some objective points. But it wasn't enough in the end, with a really tough game, with the final score being 95 to the Tyranids, 93 to the Necrons. So very close. Very good game. It was testing all the way to the end, and Chai was a great opponent. So after that, we move on to Game 3. Going into Game 3 then, I've won one, I've lost one, scored pretty high both times, which is nice, and I'm going in to play Chris with more Tyranids, but this time, rather than lots of little ones, I've got lots of big ones to deal with. He's got Lictors, Exocrines, Malceptors, the Norn Emissary, a Trigon, Ripper Swarms, Tyrant Guard, Termagants, Hormagaunts, and Gargoyles. Deployment is Hammer and Anvil, mission rules, Minefields, and primary objective, purge the foe. As I think I've mentioned before on previous videos, I'm not a huge fan of length-based deployment with Necrons. They're slow enough as it is, and now the objectives are further spaced out. But still, my main plan here is to try and hold 2 or more, and leave him to his own devices on the others. That big piece of terrain in the middle makes it a bit awkward, but also I need to tie up some of these big things. Now, as I said before, my list hasn't got a lot of big stopping power, but I can hold them up with some Lich Guard blocks. Everything goes forward as fast as it can, try and get onto the middle objective and the one on the left. The Satan teleports and gets straight there, meaning that I'm already on it, and encouraging Chris to come forward and take it off me. Which he obliges and comes forward with both the Norn Emissary and the Trigon. Now, thankfully, the Satan is a hardy thing, and it will stay, and it has got a nice lot of wet tricks to keep it alive, so it manages to hold them up until the Lich Guard can get there, charge in, and that pretty much ties them up for most of the game. I use the Veil of Darkness Lich Guard to get into the backfield, which he then counters by putting lots of little Termagants, Hormagaunts in front of them, trapping me in my corner. The main turning point of this game is when he uses his ability to make me take a battle shock test for every unit in my army, and I fail every single one of them. Every unit in my army is battle shocked, I get no objectives, I cannot score secondaries because they require me to hold an objective to score them, and this is a big swing in the game. Chris, the great player that he is, capitalizes on this and maxes out his scoring in that round, giving him a nice lead, and then I'm on the back foot. Once I've cut down the Norn Emissary, the Trigon, the Lich Guard have started to cut their way through the middle of the board and get onto the objectives. The Satan is teleporting around trying to score me extra points to try and make up some of the lost ground, but it's just not enough in the end, with the final score 77 to the Necrons, 91 to the Tyranids, making that 1 win, 2 losses in the tournament, scoring me a total of 262 points out of a possible 300 in this tournament, and placing me 8 out of 12. So a great game with Chris there at the end, a great tournament. A big thank you to Bristol Independent Gaming for having us there. A big thank you to James for organising the event and for everyone that I played on the day. As for the Necrons, well, that's the end of this version of them, because the new codex will be out by the time I next go to another tournament with them. Looking forward to what that might bring. My Lich Guard blobs will not be as dependent as they are now, but that's for another video. So if you've enjoyed this, please consider liking the video, commenting below, subscribing to the channel. There's lots more content out there. There's battle reps, there's other tournament reports, little hobby videos. Please go and take a look and see if there's anything else you like on there. So, without further ado, thank you for watching, take care, and we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.